can I say? You make my day. I like your stuff. Can't get enough. This bliss I feel, it's deep, it's real. Would you agree? Can't you tell me? I don't wanna fool you if you feel it's not true. I don't wanna scare you when I talk of us two. I don't wanna show you a face you can look through. I don't wanna hurt you unless you want me to. Despite my rush, you're not a crush. My loneliness matches your dress. You can't ignore this open door. We can't erase desire's trace. Desire's trace. I don't need to follow any advice to know. I don't need your sorrow, but hope for tomorrow. I don't need your shadow, I envy your pillow. I don't need your photo, only your libido. What's to be won? You're with someone. Soon you'll decide who's at your side. Well, anyhow, that's all for now. So you and me, when will we be? When will we be? When will we be? So
in their eyes.
It's what I've done for them. It's what they've seen that I've done.
And yet they booted you out in 1977.
Well, I think booted is a strong word. We were defeated, but within less than a month after the defeat, they were coming back to me because there was such a very sustained malicious propaganda that people were taken in by it.
When people like your own parliamentary spokesman describe you as the woman to whom the gods have entrusted the destiny of India, what's your reaction?
I haven't even heard this phrase. I don't know who's used it.
Do you regard that kind of phrase as a meaningless extravagance?
Yes, and maybe in India, most speeches are full of this. If you see the addresses that are presented to anybody, not me, anybody at all, you will be full of phrases like this.
Do you ever feel that you have in any way abused the trust that the Indian people have put in you?
Certainly not.
I'd like, obviously, because that's a question directed towards the state of emergency which you declared in 1975, when you gave yourself very great powers, and you explained, if I'm right, when you wrote to the President requiring the permission to carry out the state of emergency. Information has reached us which indicates that there is an imminent danger to the security of India. What was the precise nature of that danger?
I'm afraid you can't say anything with great precision.
But you talked to your people of a deep and widespread conspiracy of which you were sure they were aware. What conspiracy?
Well, it's obvious that now the whole subcontinent has been destabilized.
But this was an internal upheaval you were.
No, it was supported from outside.
But you required the special powers on the basis of internal upheaval.
The question was, had it been only internal with no foreign interference, one could have dealt with it in a much easier way. But it is part...
With respect, you didn't mention...
Why should one mention everything? No, one doesn't mention everything at any time. Why should one?
Could I?
But it's very obvious when people have followed the doings of international agencies and who was present in India at one time. And what is happening today is borne out everything that we suspected earlier.
Can I put to you the findings of the Shah Commission which was set up to inquire whether there were any cause to take you to court and have you condemned for excesses, abuses of power? In that report, they quote, on the basis for your requiring this emergency, no evidence whatsoever. Police reports, Home Ministry reports, your intelligence services have given you no evidence whatsoever.
That's not true at all.
What did they give you? What did they tell you precisely?
It's not because they're telling me. I'm Prime Minister. I have the business to know. And all reports do not come through police. They come through the heads of other states and very many other agencies. But they also had given those reports. How did Justice Matthew know, for instance? And many other people who spoke at that time. This report is an entirely prejudiced, one-sided report. They've completely ignored whatever people have to say on the other side. Most of the people who have given evidence are government servants whose whole livelihood and future depends on what they said here.
Do you not
People
respect
have
Justice
been,
Shah? He was, after all, a former Chief Justice
who
of
had
the Supreme Court.
expressed himself very strongly against me and my policies before being appointed.
What has he said?
He made speeches against me.
Speeches against you.
Well, not me personally, but against our policies. And he appeared against us when we... in fact, the Parliament wanted to impeach him at one time.
Is not the reality is that he found against you in reports on one occasion?
But he opposed bank nationalization very, very strongly. And it's after that that he was speaking continuously against me.
Mrs. Gandhi, was it a mere coincidence?
And I don't think that in any other country they would appoint me. Even in India, there's seldom been a case where somebody who's known to be anti has been appointed to inquire against that person. In fact, at the same time, another judge was approached. But because I had superseded him, he refused to take up these things because he said that people would not think he was fair.
Mrs. Gandhi, was it mere coincidence that at the same time the Allahabad High Court had said that you could stay in office as Prime Minister provisionally, but had found you guilty of electoral malpractice, and that therefore there was a serious risk that you would not be able to remain Prime Minister? Was that just a coincidence that this came at the same moment?
It was not a coincidence. because the
Trying to escape
opposition...
from that, I mean.
How does it help me to escape? Now, if I wanted to remain Prime Minister, all I had to do was to listen to the party bosses. They would not have wanted me out at all. I would have been Prime Minister for life. It is because...
Holding office under the findings of the court.
Yes, but on what issues? And if you look at your own newspapers, they all said they were very trivial issues.
Mrs. Gandhi, I must ask you, did you not concoct a threat to the survival of the state in order to ensure your own survival in
I'm
power?
sure that's a very rude question, and it's entirely baseless. There's nothing at all to base it on.
Well, the Shah Commission, to which I must refer, because it was a commission set up by the government, it's a judicial inquiry, and he is an eminent judge, says very clearly that the reason for, if I can
Does
just this,
that
I
in
just
a
like, if I may, you said I've asked you a rude question.
No,
I want
but may I?
can
May
I just
I
defend?
just- no,
could
may I just say
I
one
would just like to say one thing about what is in the report, if I may, because what he says is that the only evidence he can find is the Allahabad judgment, and on the basis of that, he says thousands were detained, and a series of totally illegal and unwarranted actions followed, involving untold human misery and suffering. That's why I put the question. I don't put it out of a desire to be rude to you, Mrs. Gandhi.
Is in a parliamentary democracy, is a judge competent to override what Parliament has done? The decision I took was ratified by the Cabinet and by the Parliament. It was not only accepted, it was applauded by the entire nation. Had we held the elections in 1976, we would have won hands down. Now, we did not hold the elections because the state of the economy was such at that time. The political situation was all right. But the state of the economy meant that we could see that if we continued, I don't mean us as people, but the policies we were pursuing, if they continued, we could give India a sound and stable economy. Had we held the elections then, this would not have been possible. Therefore, we jeopardized our political future and chose giving political stability, economic stability and soundness to India, rather than saying, well, let us be sure of our election.
Why then was it necessary to imprison Mr. Morarji Desai, who then became Prime Minister of India? Was he an economic threat to the state?
No, these were the people who were destroying democracy.
Destroying democracy?
Destroying democracy.
How?
Because, well, I'm sorry that you people have such short memories, but because they felt they could not win an election, they said, we must take the battle to the streets. Mr. Morarji Desai is on record in an interview having said, we are going to surround the Prime Minister's house, we are going to surround Parliament, we will see that no business is done. That the Prime Minister cannot come out, nobody can go in. Another member of the opposition, now a minister, said that if we cannot win by the ballot, we shall win by the bullet.
Later, we all become aware of the passing of the years. But every now and then, we get a sharp reminder that time is moving on rather quicker than we expected. This happened to me last month when we celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary. I was very touched that so many of you were kind enough to send messages of good wishes. There is no point in regretting the passage of time. Growing older is one of the facts of life, and it has its own compensations. Experience should help us to take a more balanced view of events and to be more understanding about the foibles of human nature. Like everyone else, I learn about what is going on in the world from the media. But I'm fortunate to have another source of information. Every day, hundreds of letters come to my desk, and I make a point of reading as many of them as I possibly can. The vast majority are a pleasure to read. There are also sad ones from people who want help. There are interesting ones from people who want to tell me what they think about current issues, or who have have suggestions to make about changing the way things are done. Others are full of frank advice for me and my family, and some of them do not hesitate to be critical. I value all these letters for keeping me in touch with your views and opinions. But there are a few letters which reflect the darker side of human nature. It is only too easy for passionate loyalty to one's own country, race, or religion, or even to one's favorite football club, to be corroded into intolerance, bigotry, and ultimately into violence. We have witnessed some frightening examples of this in recent years. All too often, intolerance creates the resentment and anger which fill the headlines and divide communities and nations and even families. From time to time, we also see some inspiring examples of tolerance. Mr. Gordon Wilson, whose daughter Marie lost her life in the horrifying explosion at Enniskillen on Remembrance Sunday, impressed the whole world by the depth of his forgiveness. His strength and that of his wife and the courage of their daughter came from their Christian conviction. All of us will echo their prayer that out of the personal tragedies of Enniskillen may come a reconciliation between the communities. There are striking illustrations of the way in which the many different religions can come together in peaceful harmony. Each year I try to attend the Commonwealth Day Interfaith Observance at Westminster Abbey. At that service, all are united in their willingness to pray for the common good. This is a symbol of mutual tolerance, and I find it most encouraging. Of course it is right that people should hold their beliefs and their faiths strongly and sincerely. But perhaps we should also have the humility to accept that while we each have a right to our own convictions, others have a right to theirs too. I'm afraid the Christmas message of goodwill has usually evaporated by the time Boxing Day is over. This year, I hope we will continue to remember the many innocent victims of violence and intolerance and the suffering of their families. Christians are taught to love their neighbours, not just at Christmas, but all year round. I hope we will all help each other to have a happy Christmas, and when the new year comes, resolve to work for tolerance and understanding between all people. Happy Christmas to you all.